here are these people that responded on this video saying, hey, you were being really rude for crossing your legs. It's like, to me, it's, oh, thanks for holding on to that part of your culture.
Annyeonghaseyo, this is Mark Peters from the Frog outside the Well Research Center. And today, as you can see, I'm meeting with my old friend. Now I can call you an old friend, can't I?
Yeah, emphasis on old, by the way.
My new old friend. We met a year ago, but we met 2-3 years ago in seeing each other's videos. And all of you in Korea, 이분을 잘 아시죠? You know who this is. Some of the comments from our earlier video, people said, oh, two of my favorite professors got together.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
That was really good. Got a lot of nice views and a lot of nice comments from that earlier video.
Well, you're one of my favorite professors, so you're a role model for me. When I retire, I want to do it just like you're doing it. So,
well, I'm having a lot of fun, and you're going to have a lot of fun because you're more multicultural than I am. I'm a one-horse pony, a one-trick pony. All I do is Korea. You travel all over. You're leaving in a couple of days to Bogota here.
Yeah. And then 2 trips to Korea. I'll be there in October, and then in November we're flying to Vietnam, and then from Vietnam back to Korea.
Oh, well, we might overlap because I'm going to Korea in 2 days, but I'll be there till the 16th of October.
Ah, okay. All right. We'll overlap by a couple of days.
Got a couple of gigs there. And then I'm going to Taiwan and Korea in November.
Ah, very good.
Yeah. Well, the thing I wanted to talk to you about is as I looked at that previous video that we did, some of the comments really struck me, surprised me. And one of them was how severe several people were in talking about sitting with your legs crossed. And a couple of them said even in front of an older person. And so you come across as a younger person to my audience.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
But this is a surprise to you, right?
Well, I'd heard of it. I know of it, and it's true in a few cultures around the world. Yeah.
Well, you're a specialist on multiple cultures, and you traveled to South America and the Middle East, I know, as well as Asia.
Yeah.
But frankly, this caught me off guard because on the one hand, my first reaction was, well, I should have protected you. I should have advised you in advance. But on the other hand, it didn't even occur to me. It didn't even occur to me because, it's so natural for the Americans. I'm going to post some pictures of American talk shows. And in American talk shows, people sit down and cross their legs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They just speak comfortably. But in Korea, there's a certain formality. Now, you've talked about this in your class when you bring the Korean students up to the front and talk about drinking. This quirky sense of drinking, where if you're a junior, you have to turn to the side to drink, and that's the crossing legs too. That's the same thing. It's showing deference, and I think essentially what we're talking about in Korea is a total consciousness of all times of the social hierarchy and the age hierarchy in Korea. So I think that's what it's about. And I think you and I can talk about it at a couple of different levels. I think on the one level, it can be dismissed as a quirky cultural error. And that can be dealt with in a couple of ways. One, we can say, well, I'm terribly sorry, I should have known better. Or we could say, well, that doesn't pertain to me. I'm not part of this. I don't play this game. I'm not in this game. So at the initial level are these two different ways of responding to it. And then I think there are deeper levels, like how should we respond? What should be our attitude toward other culture? Idiosyncrasies.
Yep.
And I think we can certainly call this an idiosyncrasy, can we not?
I think so. I mean, Well, first, crossing your legs is considered impolite in many religious circumstances. So in churches and synagogues and mosques and this sort of thing.
Let me
Um,
let me throw in something right here. When I
yeah.
mentioned to my wife I was going to do this, she said, "Oh yes." In church several years ago, in church, she sat down next to a woman, and my wife crossed her legs, and the woman next to her reached over and pushed her knee off her other leg. Church, and it was a fairly young woman. It wasn't an old stodgy woman. Yeah,
Well, it's a stranger.
yeah,
Yeah.
a stranger, and she uncrossed my wife's legs because she thought that was, you know.
Whoa,
So
whoa.
you're right. There are religious settings where you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I know. I mean, that I'm, quite, I think a lot of crossing your legs, by the way, some of it has to do with the style of dress, how what you're wearing, how, there's so many pieces to it. In Islamic cultures, it's really showing the bottom of your feet towards someone is very impolite, right? Which is why you will see, remember that the story where the Iraqi man took his shoe off and he threw it at George Bush.
Yes.
Yeah, because throwing your shoe at someone is such an act of disrespect because it's the bottom of your feet or the dirty parts. So you never want to show that to somebody.
It
So
wasn't.
when I'm in Muslim cultures, I'm always really careful about that. You can cross your legs, but don't raise your foot up.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah. So
unless you're in a mosque or something.
throwing the shoes at George Bush was not like throwing a tomato.
No, no, very different.
Shoe.
But
The
it
shoe.
was worse. It was worse, really. It's the biggest offense, right? So, and I think with you and I, in the conversation we were having, I mean, I know in Japan and I know in Korea, like I've known this, right? It's not a certain, but I think I just kind of lost myself in that moment. And we're both Americans, and and I wasn't thinking, and these are the things that are really quite fascinating. Those seats were actually very uncomfortable, if you remember.
Mhm.
And so I had to work, we kind of sunk down in them and went back, and I had to
Yeah.
really work to find a place where I could feel a sense of comfort in the most comfortable way to sit for that long time. Because what people don't understand, and these are the things that I think are really interesting when you find out what's happening, is we were sitting there for 2 hours. We were thinking we were going to have a 15-minute conversation. It turned out to be 2 hours.
Yeah.
And man, that just went on and on. And so the only way to really to be able to hold myself together, given my size and the size, you're taller than me, but the size of the seats was to cross my legs and try to hold my back up. Nonetheless, I forgot. I forgot that that's an issue, and there is a respect, and I think we talked about it in the video. Even though we're both these American professors, you are older than me. You are retired. You're a role model for me in many ways because what you're doing is exactly what I want to be doing, when I'm in your stage in life. And so there's a great deal of respect that I have for you. And so therefore, all the pieces together would have said for me, oh, hey, don't cross your legs in front of Mark. But I just kind of forgot and lost it in that moment.
Well, you and I don't think of each other as much different in age, do we really? I mean,
Yeah,
you,
I don't think so. No, and I think in the United States we don't really do, right. I'm 64 and we're about what, 15 years apart, a little
yeah,
more.
I just turned 78 a few days ago.
Okay, so almost, yeah. So we're 14 years apart. But in Korea that's a very significant number. In the United States, many people would just see us as the same.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think of us as being in a different age set,
Hmm.
especially since I'm still working, though I'm still retired. Yeah, I guess I feel like I've crossed a line at some point, being retired. But no, I think you and I, we were having a very enjoyable discussion. You say we thought about 15 minutes and it turned into 2 hours, but I made 4 videos out of that
Yeah,
discussion
yeah, that's a lot.
because
Yeah.
I edited it, and
So
they were wonderful. I got a lot of views off of them. People enjoyed
yeah.
them.
No, it was one of my most enjoyable conversations that I've had in recent times. Hey, but what struck me was, this kind of the the feelings that went behind some of those comments that people made, right?
Yeah.
People felt very strongly about it. And
Yeah. As I was starting to say about the different levels of understanding, there's the sort of the superficial level where we can say we're sorry or,
yeah, yeah,
hey, forget it, it doesn't matter. But
yeah,
at another level, a response level from people, especially from the survey, I did this survey to ask people what they thought. And 5% just said, yeah, crossing your leg is impolite. End of story. Others said 30, 40% said they're Americans. We should not, be critical. And then others said that you should be aware and be cautious. So, yeah. And then their comments to the poll were even more interesting because it addressed this issue. And some of them said, "Hey, this is no big deal. They're Americans. They shouldn't be expected to adhere to these rules." And yet others were very severe. Etiquette is etiquette. You
yeah,
should be respectful. And
yeah,
a couple of them commented that you're younger than I.
yeah. Yes, I should know. Well, okay, so let's go to the first one, right? It's not a big deal. Well, we're both sociologists, right? You're not trained as a sociologist, but you really are a sociologist in the way you see the world. And certainly in the world of Korea and East Asia, you're very much a sociologist, right? And so am I. And so I do everything I can within reason. I mean, to follow the customs and the mores of the places where I visit. I make a lot of mistakes. I know that from time to time I offend people, and when I do, I don't feel bad about it because, especially if it's something that I don't know about. I mean, there's nothing I can say. But I'm so fascinated by other people's culture, and I want to uplift other people's cultures. So I try to kind of find my way through and do my best. And that's fun to me. I have an opportunity to live someone else's life. So in a case like this, I would have been sitting there saying like, oh, hang on, wait, I can't cross my legs. I want to be Korean in that sense. That's why life is so fascinating. You get to live these different lives, but it's not offensive across the board. I mean, they're very, if you could show that video to people all over the world. I mean, very few cultures that people would say, "Oh yeah, that he should not have been sitting with his legs crossed at all." Very few cultures, but that doesn't really matter. The fact is, we were in Korea and we're talking about Korea, and so, in that sense, it's like, okay, all right, this is good. This is good. This is good to hear.
Now, you say you make some mistakes at times. You're a Spanish speaker, so
Uh-huh.
you're more deeply involved and committed to Latin American or Hispanic culture, but you
Yeah.
also do a lot of the things in the Middle East where
Yeah, yeah,
you don't
yeah.
speak Arabic, do you?
No, I don't speak Arabic, but I mean, I speak Spanish fluently, actually. And I mean, I'm going to Bogota where I have an apartment in Bogota in a couple of days. So, yeah,
The-
and but in Muslim cultures, as I mentioned, there are lots of very formal customs that you really have to. You know, again, you and I are Westerners, okay? So I've rarely met somebody in the Arabic world, the Muslim world, Muslim Arab world that isn't forgiving to people like us. We break customs. They're very, very okay with it. Just kind of like the Koreans in your poll who are saying, "Ah, you're Americans. It's okay."
so, well, the point I was going to make about language is the biggest mistakes I make in Korean culture are the things I say, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
make mistakes all the time. And I if Koreans were not forgiving, I would have been stoned and tarred and feathered years ago.
So
But
you're
they're
talking
very
about
forgiving.
mistakes that are offensive to people.
I think in some cases they border on offenses. Some
Mm.
cases they border on stupidity. I look foolish from saying something that I said, inappropriately, and I didn't know. I tried my best, but I'm a language learner who believes that you've got to say it. You've got to speak it. It's
Yeah,
my extrovert personality. Introverts don't learn language as well because they're
yeah.
cautious and sometimes they don't speak. But if you speak and speak and speak, you make mistakes, but you learn. So your level of understanding of Spanish culture is going to be at a different level than your work in the Middle East.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I've spent a great deal of time. First off, I lived over a year in Spain, just kind of really taking in and the very traditional Spanish culture. Um, but Latin American culture, also very traditional culture in Ecuador, where I lived for about a year and a half. Mexico, a little bit different, but now Colombia, where it's very modern and so on. But also, I'm connected to some very traditional parts of Colombian culture. So yeah, I enter in at different levels. And because I speak Spanish, there are, I don't always get a pass when I do something that's offensive.
Oh,
People
yeah.
will say, well, you
You
should
should
know
have known better.
this. Yeah, yeah. Here in Korea, it's like, well, I think for some of the Koreans, some of the people who, spoke out on that, I'm sure are older Koreans, and who maybe some of them who know me, who have some sense that I understand Korean culture. So I really should have known, and so like, yeah. And I think that I'm sure if I had been in but listen, I'll give you this. I know that I was speaking at a conference last June. These conference chairs, right? You see them, they're white. They're really big and they're white and they're deep. And
Yeah.
the way Koreans, you have to sit on the edge of the chair and you have to sit up straight and you have to just really hold yourself in this way. And sometimes, man, that's really difficult. And I will cross my legs and I think, okay, hang on, I got to not do that. Now I'll make sure. Now I'm very conscious of it. I'll make sure I do in front of a big room full of people.
Yeah.
Uh, but again, that's the thing about people from other cultures, right? I mean, Americans are quite forgiving toward people who commit these faux pas, as we say, the
Yeah.
French word faux pas.
Yeah. From other cultures. I think we're quite forgiving, but Americans are sort of snooty and demanding of speaking English, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Well, when I first thought of making a video to talk about the cultural faux pas, the cultural error that we were accused of, I'm going to share any arrows that are flown this way because I'm the native guide. I'm the one that should have said, "Hey, there's some people that won't like you sitting with your legs
yeah,
crossed." It
yeah,
didn't even occur to me.
yeah,
That
yeah.
tells you what a bad native guide I am.
Yeah, yeah, we'll just blame it on you. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I wonder how much of that came, when you're in Korea, you're speaking Korean almost all the time. You're interacting with Koreans the vast majority of the time. I mean, sure, I was one of very few Americans that you run into, right? So you're in a Korean mindset. And then we got into this room here, we closed the door, and now we're these two Americans talking. And I wonder how much of you just sort of switched into your American side. And yeah.
I'll accept that as an excuse.
All right.
No, I think that's right because we were really enjoying our discussion. And,
Yeah.
you and I have a great symbiosis in that I'm a Korean guy and nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my foxhole or my well. I tell Koreans I'm the frog outside the well, but I'm really looking at the well all the time, the Korean well only. But the thing that's really great about you is your sociology is really multicultural and international.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's why when I decided I should make a video about this to be an interesting video, I thought, hey, I shouldn't do this one alone. I should get Sam to come in and talk with me about it.
Well, yeah. And so now with that in mind, I think, okay, now let me speak as a sociologist for a second and say, well, now, huh, when I'm seeing people, first off, I understand that mores and these kind of rules of behavior, so to speak, right? Norms and so on. They're created by individual cultures. They're created by humans. There is nothing written in stone for anything at all. There's almost nothing. I don't think there's anything I can imagine that is true across all cultures, right? So that makes for somebody like me who's thinking about this and is living this very cross-cultural life, for somebody like me, it's very difficult to look at any situation and say, hey, that actually is rude, or you shouldn't be doing that, or you shouldn't say that, or you shouldn't act that way, or you shouldn't wear that, whatever it is, because I know that there's somewhere in the world where everything we could identify is acceptable and it's fine. So then it makes me think, huh. So here you've got this segment of Korean culture that is very traditional, and that they would feel comfortable replying in a video chat saying like, hey, what that person's doing is very, very rude. Yeah. And feel passionately about it. Well, it's important to say, well, hang on a second. This isn't true across the board. So recognize that you're seeing this from one small perspective. Okay, it's the Korean perspective, it's traditional Korean behavior, and so that's fine. On the other hand, it's kind of cool that you've got these traditions in a culture that people feel very tied to and they feel very strongly about, and that's how they live on, that's how things live on. And I want cultures to hold on to the parts, these real core parts of them that exist. And it's important for especially older people or more traditional people to really hang on to this, like bring it through. That's what makes these cultures so fascinating, you know. So when I'm in Korea, I don't want to be experiencing Korea like I experienced Italy or Colombia. I want to experience Korea like Korea. So I'm really feel good about the fact that here are these people that responded on this video saying, hey, you were being really rude for crossing your legs. It's like, to me, it's, oh, thanks for holding on to that part of your culture. You know, it feels good.
And you know, in a sense, this issue has nothing to do with crossing your legs.
Yeah.
That's just the symbol of what's going on. I shouldn't say it has nothing to do, but the crossing the legs is a statement of other issues. It's a statement of respect. It's a statement of
Mm,
honoring age. It's a
yeah.
statement of looking at your decorum. You know, who are you in the world, and how do you present yourself to the world? And these
Mm,
things that are very important to Koreans. Which brings me to, I think, my last question for you is, these cultural norms are changing.
hmm.
And that's one of the issues of culture all the time, is cultural change. And as cultures change, there's good and bad, you know.
Yeah.
And as academics, we hesitate to say something is good or something is bad because the cultural values that they have may look bad to someone, may look good to someone else. But cultural change is a difficult thing because, on the one hand, cultural change is good. Modernization, you know, getting with the modern world, learning how
Hmm.
to interact with other people, the way other people interact. But on the other hand, it's very bad because you're losing something
Yeah.
along the way.
Yep.
So uh, that's an issue I'd like to get you to respond to. The good or the bad, or the plus or the minus, maybe is a better way of looking at
Yeah.
it. Cultural
Yeah.
change.
Well, you know, like when I'm in Korea and I know there's a conversation about using English lettering all in public, and I'm not that I don't like that. I want to see Korean lettering. I don't want to feel like I'm in New York or something, LA or wherever. Like I want to be in Korea. So I know there's a big conflict about this. You know, so many all the signage, you know, so much stuff is um I I think it's I think it's exactly what you said. And what I said earlier, it's like, well, you know, hold on to these customs. Even though the world is becoming you know, in many, we're headed toward a singular global culture
Yeah,
that's, you know, metropolitan, and man, you know, it's like you go to Itaewon or something. I mean, there are places you can go that I'm like, well, I can walk down the street there. I might as well be in New York City or
yeah,
Tokyo or Paris. I was in Paris. It looks the same. It
yeah.
doesn't really look any different, you know. I don't like that as a sociologist. So yeah, so I feel like we're losing something, and it's going to be the older generations. It's people like us who point that out and help to direct some of the younger people back to say, hey, don't be careful about this. Don't lose it.
I feel like that's a losing battle, though. If
Yeah, it
we're
is.
generals in the war of cultural preservation, you
Yeah.
know, we may as well drive the army over the cliff because we're
Yeah.
the
I
global
think,
culture is taking over.
yeah, it is. It is. I suppose yeah, well, I was in Bermuda, Lori and I, we actually took a vacation in August. It was the first vacation we've had in about 25 years.
Oh
Where
my.
we didn't know anybody, although I did meet someone who watched the Social 19 live stream.
Yeah.
There's one Kentucky Fried Chicken in the capital city. And I thought, oh, it was so nice to be walking around
Yeah.
and not see anything that looked familiar.
Yeah.
And
It's,
I thought, wow, thankfully you've done that. You really held that off.
yeah.
So,
There is something to the beauty of holding on to culture, even within American context. For example, I gave a talk for Lawrence University, which is in upper Wisconsin, and the talk was held at a conference center on the peninsula. You know how Michiganders always say, I'm here in the Michigan. Wisconsin also has that peninsula.
yeah, yeah.
The quirky thing is they don't call it the name of a peninsula. They call it Door County.
Ah,
Door County means that peninsula in Wisconsin. And
uh-huh.
at a certain point, you leave McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and the pop culture of America behind. And as you go farther to the north, it's like places in Vermont and places in rural Massachusetts where you don't have any of that stuff.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and some places by regulation, McDonald's cannot put up the arches in
Mhm,
certain places. And it's, sort of a native private culture. And the restaurants are all locally owned and the stores
yeah,
are all locally owned. And you don't have the big box and this mega culture
yeah,
that you and I are uncomfortable with because it represents a internationalization and an abandonment of natural native cultures, I suppose.
yeah. And it's also really terrible food. So, Lori and I, we spent a sabbatical in Prague in the Czech Republic back in 1996. So it wasn't long after the Iron Curtain fell. And we watched, even in the time that we were there, we just watched all this Western stuff coming in. And then we got to Krakow, Poland. We spent 6 weeks in Krakow, Poland. And right downtown, in one of the oldest buildings, one of the most beautiful buildings was a McDonald's, right in the center square. And you know what? That McDonald's was packed from morning to night. It was packed with Czechs.
Yeah.
And Lori and I kept saying, oh God, this is so terrible. This is terrible. Not the Czech, or pardon me, was packed with Poles. This was in Poland.
Yeah.
Now, the Czechs aren't known for their food, so they have great beer, but they don't have very good food. Poles, by contrast, have terrible beer, but they have great food. And I think, here are all these Polish people going into this McDonald's. And Lori and I said to herself, why are we fighting this? Like, why are we worried about this? But we wanted to tell each one of them, like, look, you don't want this. Like, don't do this, right? But it just was what it was. And yeah, so it's kind of everywhere in a way.
Well, we don't want to be curmudgeons.
No, no, no. We're not. Although I don't eat at McDonald's, but nonetheless, yeah.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
But no, we don't want to be curmudgeons, but we sort of are in a certain context. And in Korea, they've got a word for curmudgeon that's very derogatory, and it's old-fashioned old man is what it turns
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if
Well, I don't think you and I would be at risk of being called that, though, really. By
I hope
Koreans, I
not.
wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
And I hope that at least this conversation tells people that we want to be culturally alive, not just culturally sensitive, but culturally
Yeah.
learning
Yeah, for sure. It's fun. Yeah.
and culturally respectful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because why not? It's what I said earlier in the conversation. I want to be able to live multiple lives. So when I can enter into a different culture and and I know enough to live kind of as part of that culture. That's a really awesome experience for me
Yeah.
because I'm no longer Sam living in this life. I'm actually stepping outside of my life and I'm entering into another one.
Yeah. Well, and indeed, on a more limited scale, that's what I like about living in Korea. I like to, I like to think of myself as a Korean. And one of the greatest compliments I can have from people is people will say, "Oh, you're just like a Korean." And
And
that really thrills me.
yeah, that's really cool. Yeah,
Well,
I feel like that when I'm, in Colombia or somewhere and I'm speaking Spanish and I'm just kind of entering in some level. And it's unfortunate, I just don't have the time and it's speaking Korean. You told me this. You kind of were the final person that said, dude, don't even try. Like it's going to take you so long. If you just get a few words down, that's good enough. It's just hard. It takes so much time.
yeah.
So it's quite unfortunate that I don't have that. Uh,
Well,
but
it takes a lifetime, and you can't do it all. But you do so well in Korea. They love you because
yeah,
of the things that you point out the cultural value that very
yeah,
often Koreans themselves do not see.
yeah, yeah,
Now, here we're talking about you and I not seeing a Korean value that we've
yeah,
been beaten over the head with,
yeah, yeah,
but our job, you and I, and the thing that gives us joy and pleasure is to find this culture, whatever it is, and to respect it and learn from it and get into
Mhm,
it. Uh,
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
yeah,
I've learned so much from all of East Asia, but in Korea, from Korea in particular, and Koreans. Yeah, I learned so much. And I learned so much about respect. I have so much, it's just, I find myself wherever I go, I find myself bringing this Korean sense of humility and respect
yeah, yeah,
to social interactions that I never would have done in the past.
yeah, yeah,
So it slows me down. I pay attention and I think, oh, okay, this is really, really nice.
yeah, yeah. There's such beauty, such really, beauty is the best word for it in this Korean culture. The things that we're learning there. Well, we better say goodbye. Any
Yeah,
final
and by the
thoughts?
way, but I want to take note of the that award from YouTube, right? That symbolizes,
Yeah,
you you reached what that's 100,000 subscribers or
that's a
250.
100,000. Yeah, that's a 100,000.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
big. People don't really understand. I think many people don't understand what it takes to get 100,000 subscribers. So yeah, congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. It's a lot of fun, and through this, I get to meet people like you.
Yeah, yeah, well, same here. So, all right, well, listen, yeah, it's certainly, I don't want to downplay that. It's been really, really, every conversation I've had with you has been just extremely enjoyable. So, I appreciate it. Let me know
Well,
anytime you want to talk about something.
let's do it again. I would be more than happy to zoom into your Penn State class sometime if you'd like, uh,
Hmm.
and field questions and such. Or you and I can cross paths again. We're going to cross paths again. We'll see each other again.
Yeah, for sure. Let me think about that. I have thought about it. Certainly office hours, but what would be interesting is when I do something on Korea to at least have you in office hours, or have you come in for
Well,
watch it and then come in and say something as an American. Yeah, that would be cool. Okay.
I'm trying to think of something I can do for you because you've done so much.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Actually, that'd be really good. I'd be quite honored to have you zoom in. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Awesome.
Well,
All right, Mark.
let's see.
Listen, be well.
Happy
Have
travels,
yeah, same with you. Same with you. All right.
and we'll look forward to seeing you again the next time very soon, I hope.
All right, very good. All right, thank you.
See you all.
Oh,
Bye.
yes.